Stephen King was born in Portland, Maine in 1947, the second son of Donald and Nellie Ruth King. In the fall of 1971, Stephen began teaching high school English classes at Hampden Academy, the public high school in Hampden, Maine. Writing in the evenings and on the weekends, he continued to produce short stories to work on novels. In the spring of 1973, Doubleday Corporation accepted the novel Carrie for publication. On Mother's Day that year, Stephen learned from his new editor at Doubleday, Bill Thompson, that a major paperback sale would allow him with the means to leave teaching and write full-time. Stephen King is now one of the world's most famous writers in the horror genre, even being nicknamed the King of Horror. King has written 54 books, selling 350 million copies, and earning literary accolades such as the Medal of Distinguished Contribution to American Letter and the World Fantasy Award. The Shining, written by Stephen King, is a horror novel published in 1977. The setting and characters are influenced by King's personal experiences, including both his visits to Stanley Hotel in 1974 and his recovery from alcoholism. This was his third novel and his first hardback bestseller. The success of this book was truly made King the #1 author in the horror genre. The Shining revolves around main character Jack Torrance and his family. After being fired from his teaching job, aspiring writer Jack takes position of a caretaker of the Overlook Hotel for the winter months. In efforts to bring the family closer and mend problems within his marriage, Jack brings his whole family to accompany him in his work. Evil and spiritual presence within the hotel influence their father into violence towards his wife and his son Danny in an effort to gain the soul and life of Danny as one of their own. The only thing that can save Danny and his mother are his physical powers of The Shining, which allows him to see images from the past and the future, and also to see dead and communicate with others who also shine. The scene I chose is known as the Bat Scene. I chose this scene as it is a pivotal moment to the advancement of the plot, and because it highlights some of the mistakes and good things that Stanley Kubrick did in the production of the film. It's a key component into the fast-paced ending of the film because, in the Bat Scene, Jack reaches a climax of his spiritual possession after Grady, the old spirit of the caretaker, convinces him to kill his family for the good of the hotel. This scene shows that Kubrick is able to emphasize the mental hold that the spirits have on Jack through good stage direction and script, but fails to demonstrate the true description of Wendy and her need to save her and her son's life. Ultimately, the director did an okay job in reenacting this famous scene onto the big screen because of its differences from the novel and his personal directorial choices. In my opinion, Stanley Kubrick somewhat succeeded in reanimating Stephen King's novel The Shining in his 1980 film due to his clever addition of props, lighting and editing choices, and soundtrack considerations. Casting choices, in my opinion, where Stanley Kubrick failed in reflecting the Stephen King classic to the big screen. In the novel, Wendy is described as a blonde-haired, pretty woman who was very privileged as a child, as a result not having any real-world experience dealing with serious issues. In Kubrick's adaptation, Wendy, played by Shelley Duvall, is a black-haired woman who is almost scary-looking, unlike her pretty description in the book. There's also a sense that she had a tough past, which prepares her better for some of the tough situations that are to come. On the other hand, Jack was also casted wrongly. Stephen King describes Jack as an average Joe who does not have too much flashy personality. In the film, Kubrick chose Jack Nicholson to play the role of Jack Torrance. In Hollywood, Nicholson is known for his large ego and personality, and as audiences see him in the film, they will associate him with that character, changing the original way that Stephen King intended the story to be. In regards to costumes, the director and his team of costume designers chose outfits that effectively represent the 80s time period. For props, there's only one that really stood out in the addition of Kubrick's representation. For props, there's one that stands out because it was added into the scene by Kubrick. Moments before the conversation, Jack finds Wendy looking at his work he had spent hours upon hours completing. All that was written for hundreds of pages was the repeated line, "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." There is no part of this in the novel, but I believe that the director's choice to include it emphasized how mentally skewed he was by the spirits and there was no longer control over his actions. The soundtrack within the scene consists of a mixture of sound and song. At the beginning of the scene, there are sharp noises when Jack taps on the papers, and the sounds of harps being played recklessly as Jack walks slowly closer and closer to Wendy.
Okay, let's talk. What do you want to
This adds an eerie calming to the scene, while Wendy and Jack talk about Danny, and one is able to realize that Jack is going to correct the situation with his family. It's a bit difficult to get a true sense of the feeling of the scene in the book, as some of the dialogue is innocent looking, but the director effectively uses the soundtrack to ensure that the audience sense the large turning point in the plot. The setting of the scene takes place in the hotel's common room. This is where Jack spends a considerable amount of time writing his novel within both the movie and the book. This is a significant space because it's where a lot of the paranormal activity takes place and where Danny sees many evil spirits. It's ironic that the moment where Wendy finds out her husband is no longer present is in the room where she finds the most beautiful and peaceful at the beginning of the play. It's also a place chosen by the director where Wendy is constantly finding out truths about Jack. This includes reading his work and finding out that all is written is all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, and when Danny has a black eye, signs of Jack's abuse of their son. This is a very crucial setting within the novel and the movie. The director's choice to say true to the King's original version for the scene was effective in allowing audiences to make connection that when one is in this room, bad things are bound to happen. The director chooses natural lighting to the scene, letting the sun shine through the large windows, and this gives the scene an eerie feeling as there's visibility but no brightness in the setting at all, adding to the darkness of the movie. The angle used predominantly in the scene is a frontal view, allowing the audience to truly get a sense of the changing motions of the characters in their mental state. The transition between the shots are very smooth, not typically in horror movies. This created great amounts of suspense as we knew something was about to happen. Also, when Jack and Wendy are walking towards the stairs, they have a slightly further camera shot on Wendy than they do Jack. I believe this is because they want to capture the facial expressions and intensity of Jack in the scene, as he's the main character in the scene. All in all, the camera angles are more focused on the top half of the characters to capture their true emotions.
Ever thought about my responsibilities?
Oh, Dick, what are you talking about?
Have you ever had a single moment's thought about my responsibilities? Have you ever thought for a single solitary moment about my responsibilities to my employers? Has it ever occurred to you that I have agreed to look after the Overlook Hotel until May the 1st? Does it matter to you at all that the owners have placed their complete confidence and trust in me and that I have signed a letter of agreement, a contract, in which I have accepted that responsibility? Do you have the slightest idea what a moral and ethical principle is, do you? Has it ever occurred to you what would happen to my future if I were to fail to live up to my responsibilities? Has it ever occurred to you? Has it?
As Wendy and Jack walk up the stairs, the cameraman chose to do something interesting. Notice how there's always a shot of the person who's speaking, and in the corner of the screen, there's the other character. This was intended by the cameraman to show how close the two characters are, and this also shows how Wendy's not safe from Jack, even when she's trying to get away.
You've had your whole
All in all, the directorial choices of Kubrick ensured every person was on the edge of their seat, improving upon the original novel.
Stay away from me. Please! Don't hurt me!
I'm not gonna hurt you.
Stay away from me!
Wendy,
Stay away!
darling, light of my life, I'm not gonna hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in.
Stay away from me! Don't hurt me!
I'm not gonna hurt you.
Stay away from me! Stay away! Please!
Stop swinging the bat.
Stay away from me!
Put the bat down, Wendy.
Stop it!
Wendy, give me the bat.
Please! Stay away!
Give me the bat.
Stop it!
Give me the bat.
Stay away from me!
Stop swinging the bat.
Please stop!
Give me the bat.
Stay away from me!
Wendy,
Stay!
give me the bat. Give me the bat.
Now that you've watched the scene, we can conclude that Wendy's not a very violent individual at all, but she's forced to use a bat to defend herself and her child from her husband, a person who she thought would protect the family, not hurt it. The love she has for her son and her needs to protect him is a complex that forces her into aggressive behavior. It controls her behavior in a negative way, but in this instant and for the rest of the film, it was crucial for her and Danny's survival. The first major change from the novel to the film is that the director chose to substitute a knife for a bat as Wendy's weapon. In the novel, Wendy stabs Jack with a knife as he attempts to get close to her and hurt her. This shows just how committed she is and how strong her complex is in the scene, ready to kill her husband to save her son and herself. This may also have been changed because of the fact that the knife is a bit more gruesome than the bat, and viewers may have been a bit more set off by the knife, but let's be real. I don't think Kubrick really wanted to hold back anything. The second difference is Danny's visions. There's a recurring vision that Danny has in the film of an elevator spewing blood into the halls. This was never present in King's book, as Danny only saw visions of the hotel, red rum on the door, spirits, and him being chased by a monster. There's no significant reason for why the elevator scene was put in the movie, and it adds nothing really to the plot. The scene itself took months to shoot and dozens of attempts, as Kubrick was never convinced it looked real. They spent large amounts of money for the scene that should never have even been in the movie. The third major difference in the scene from the novel to the book. To conclude, I believe that Stanley Kubrick's movie adaptation of Stephen King's novel, The Shining, was successful in some aspects and unsuccessful in others when comparing the book and the film together.